On a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think you know yourself? Most people rank themselves at about an 8 out of 10. This estimate is way off. It is virtually impossible to know yourself this well. We are not who we think we are, and we know far less about ourselves than we think we do because we have very limited access to the inner workings of our minds, and our lack of self-control is a clear indicator of this fact. Whether studying, exercise, meditation, it is very difficult for us to do the things that we know we should be doing. This is because our behavior resembles a power struggle between invisible forces with conflicting interests. It's like we're stuck in our heads with someone else, an inner roommate. This is no surprise. In fact, researchers at Caltech have shown that the left and right hemisphere of the brain can be independently conscious in the famous split brain experiments. In other words, different parts of our brain are often in conflict with each other in ways that we are not aware of. There is often a dual nature to the human mind. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychiatrists to ever live, describes the shadow as the unknown dark side of the personality. It's everything that we refuse to acknowledge about ourselves, a set of undesirable personality traits that we unconsciously suppress. Some of these traits include laziness, envy, and the longing for power and prestige, things that we're quick to see in others, but not in ourselves. The more we suppress the shadow, the stronger it becomes. And if you think you don't have a shadow, this is because your mind is fooling you. Have you ever pointed out the flaws in others but failed to do so in yourself? Ever internally rejoiced in the downfall of a coworker so you feel superior? We all do this, and it's completely natural. Even the best of us can't escape from the shadow. So what do we do about this? Instead of suppressing our darkest side, we must confront the shadow and integrate it into our lives. And to integrate the shadow is to acknowledge our flaws by 1, clearly recognizing the internal conflicts we face without completely identifying with them, and 2, channeling these deep negative emotions like bitterness and envy into a drive that is positive in nature. I'll give you an example. As a child, Elon Musk was bullied so severely that he once had to be hospitalized and eventually had to undergo surgery to repair his nose. Despite these experiences, he channeled this isolation and sourness into a relentless drive that has now led to companies like SpaceX and Tesla.
All this negative shit that was making me weak and horrible as a person, I had to use this as the power that now fueled me. I had to flip it on its head and say, hold up, this might be exactly what I need. The darkness is exactly what I need.
Shadow aside, let's return to the larger topic at hand, understanding our behavior. Consciousness is a topic most people don't think enough about, and is much more important, complex, and interesting than it appears. There's perhaps no better way to realize this than contemplating its origin. So our brains are composed of about 100 billion neurons. Neurons, most assume, are not individually conscious, but when connected, these neurons suddenly produce a subjective experience in a continuum of thoughts, sensations, and memory. Let's take a moment to appreciate this conundrum. You see, matter can be reduced to atoms, light can be reduced to photons, but consciousness doesn't seem to be reducible. It seems to emerge from nothing. Or does it? The idea of panpsychism argues that consciousness, like matter, is indeed reducible. It argues that every material, however small, has an intrinsic element of consciousness. Emergence, on the other hand, states that consciousness simply emerges from non-conscious matter, arranged in a particular configuration. This is reminiscent to how the Big Bang gave birth to matter, space, and time from the initial singularity. Which of these theories is correct? We have no idea. An understanding of consciousness enables better self-control, more empathy for others, and a greater peace of mind. Let's start with self-control. The reason we can't control ourselves is because the I that we identify with is only half of who we really are. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, describes the 2 systems of thought in his seminal book, Thinking, Fast and Slow. System 1 being fast, instinctive, and emotional thinking, while System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and logical. The issue is that we only identify with the conscious System 2, although the unconscious System 1 is how we really make most of our decisions. You see, we think our consciousness has much more power than it actually does, and we are blind to the forces that influence our behaviors, desires, and personality traits. Understanding consciousness allows us to avoid this pitfall. Also, since we know others are going through the same mental battle, our empathy for those around us increases with a better understanding of consciousness. And lastly, this knowledge allows for a greater peace of mind. You see, consciousness is the space in which sensations and thoughts come and go. And most bad emotions arise from the identification with negative thoughts. An understanding of consciousness allows us to break the spell and shows us that we are not the negative thoughts, but the larger vessel which the negative thoughts pass through. In other words, understanding consciousness is a means to a happier life.